This is the most casual crossing I've ever seen. In a dark closet, clenching my fists and figuring out where and when, and crossed over. The boy crossed over to the party last night. He was knocking over tables and embarrassing everyone. This time, the boy walked carefully down the stairs and, as he passed the table, he avoided the impact perfectly. The boy is stunned. It is the first time he has ever crossed. He immediately dives back into the cupboard, closes his eyes, clenching his fists. His eyes flutter open, back to the day again. And sure enough, everyone doesn't remember his embarrassing story. This is a very special skill that only the men in the family know it. The boy's father told him that, "I've read all the books in the world by crossing over, and your grandfather got a lot of money. Now it's time for you to think about what you're going to do with it." The boy says weakly,
"It would be just great if you could help me get a girlfriend."
Wow.
"Here's your chance. A distant relative comes to stay with us for a while. It's a blonde girl." The boy is instantly smitten. One time the blonde girl was sunbathing and she asks the boy to put sunscreen on her. He messes up again. The boy decides to do it again. This time it was perfect. He takes it in his stride. Sunscreen squeezed onto his hand. Little by little, the blonde girl says good work. Soon, the blonde girl is leaving tomorrow. The boy knows it will be too late if he doesn't make a move. The boy goes into her room and confesses his love. The blonde girl says that, "If you had come a few days earlier, I might have said yes." The boy thinks to himself, how easy could it be? Immediately, he goes into the cupboard. He travels back in time to a few days ago. He opened the door of his room again and confesses his love to the blonde girl. But the blonde girl said, "Why don't we spend the summer together? Ask me again on our last night." The boy is stunned. He walked out of the room, lost in thought. He had learnt a lesson. No matter how much you travel, you can't make someone who doesn't love you fall in love with you. The boy sent the blonde girl away. He set off on his own journey to the big city, to work, to find the love of his life. But life in the big city is boring. The landlord is a rough guy. All he does is write scripts and sleep. The boy gets a job as a lawyer, but he can't meet any girls. There's only one naive colleague. At last, in front of a bar, the boy meets Mary. It's so beautiful, isn't it? He's even got a name for the baby. The boy takes the initiative. He had a nice conversation with Mary. He managed to get a phone number. On the way home, he was so happy. But when he gets home, he finds the landlord is not so lucky. His play was a complete failure. One of the actors has forgotten one of the most important lines in his script. The boy decides to help him save the day. So he returns to his room and, with clenched fists, and travels back in time to the play. The actor has forgotten his line. The boy took out his lines and prompted him one by one. At last the play comes to an end. The audience cheered. The landlord is overjoyed. But then something terrible happens. The boy opens his phone contacts. Mary's phone number has disappeared. This man has knocked over the table. Never mind. Let's do it again. Perfect to avoid. Too much sunscreen for the girl. It's okay. Do it again. Perfect for the girl.
Nice.
My friend's play was a disaster. It's a piece of cake. Let's do it again. The actor who forgot his words was prompted by the man. Gets a standing ovation.
Of a guilty man!
This man can cross over and make all the screw-ups perfect. But when the play ended, the man flipped through his phone. The number of the goddess Mary is gone. It turns out that the man has tampered with the time. That the night he originally met Mary, he didn't show up. The man regrets losing his future wife just like that. But he doesn't give up. He waits for Mary every day at the photography exhibition. Because Marie had said she liked photography, the man waited for days on end. Finally, he finds Mary. But Mary didn't know him at all and has just got a new boyfriend. The man has a brainwave. He asks Mary about all the things she likes and asked for details of the day they met. It was at 8:30 p.m. in a bar? It was boring? Okay. The man makes an excuse to leave, rubbing his hands together and walking into a darkened toilet. He crosses over to the bar of that day. He finds a bored Mary, creates a perfect chance encounter, talks about all the things Mary likes, and manages to capture her heart. Mary thinks she's met the right man. She takes the man home. Then she says, "Come to my room." From then on, the man and Mary live happily ever after. They went to work together and left work together. Finally, one day, the man flew home. He decided to ask Mary to marry him. He was asleep. She was sleeping and didn't give him any attention. The man decides to do it again. He plays music. He says gently to Mary, "Marry me," with tears in her eyes. Mary said yes, and so the perfect wife was born. The two had an open-air wedding. But the weather was playing tricks on them. It was windy and rainy. Some were blown over. Some fell down. Some got soaked to the skin. At the dinner party, the roof was blown off. The wedding was a disaster. When it came to the best man's speech, the man chose his lawyer friend. The best man chose his lawyer friend to give the toast. But to his surprise, he was giving a lecture on the law. The hero finally relents and travels back in time and the best man is replaced by the landlord. The landlord scolds him. This time, it's his best friend. The best friend is even stranger. The best friend summarizes the man's love life. Finally, the best man is replaced by the man's father. Finally, the father gives a graceful toast. It was all over perfectly. During the break, the man asked Mary, "Wasn't a windy and rainy wedding bad?" But Mary said it wasn't at all, because that's life. Soon, Mary had a baby. Married life is sweet and peaceful. It seems that there is no need to cross over to change anything. But then, not long after, something happens. The man's sister has her heart broken by a scumbag. She crashes into someone else's car on the way. She survives, but she is left in a hospital bed, unable to move. The crossover comes in handy again. The man clenches his fist. Back at the party where his sister and the scumbag first met, he shows his sister who he really is. She punched him twice. She went up to him and punched him twice and kicked him hard. Now she won't do anything stupid because of the scumbag. The hero thinks everything is perfectly resolved, but when he gets home and picks up the baby, he's stunned. The daughter had turned into a boy. The man picks up his child and, at first glance, the daughter had turned into a boy. The man goes to the father and asks him what happened. The father tells him the rules of crossing. If, after having a child, and travel back in time to before he was born, and change history, the child would no longer be the same. The man has to put things back to square one. The original daughter comes back, but the sister is still in a car accident. No matter how you travel, life is not perfect, but the good news is, she soon forgets about her scum. After recovering, she falls in love with the man's best friend. Life returns to peace. The man soon has a second daughter, but the unexpected is never absent. The man's father is diagnosed with cancer. In the room, the father tells the man that, no matter how you travel, life will always have its gains and losses. Then he tells him a secret more important than crossing over, and that is to live a normal day first, and then before going to bed, to cross over to the beginning of the day with an attitude of indifference, and then to live it all over again, and then the perfect life would come. After saying goodbye to his father, the man decided to try this approach. The new day is ordinary. A new day. He goes to a familiar shop to buy bread, and he wins his case without any trouble. On the underground on the way home, the man next to me has his headphones on. The music is spilling out. The man is annoyed. He comes home, says goodnight to his wife. The day is over. Boring and uninspiring. Well, here's step 2. The day starts all over again. This time, the man looks away from it all. He goes about his life with an attitude of indifference. Faced with an annoying boss, man secretly scolds him. He takes it out on his colleagues. He goes to buy bread with a smile on his face. The saleswoman is also bright. The lawsuit is won. He and his colleagues cheer with excitement. The man gives him a good hug. On the underground on the way home, the same man with the headphones. The music is still loud, but the man doesn't care anymore. He decides to play with him. Back home, he makes out with his wife. He says goodnight. Then the day was over. My father's method had really worked. Every day after that, the men repeat it all over again. The first time, the heart is filled with the nervousness and worry. That comes with seeing the world for the first time. By the second time, they become aware of the beauty around them. But the joy doesn't last long. My father died. Everyone at the funeral is gloomy. But the man had not lost his father completely. He went into the room and, when he walked out, had changed his clothes. Yes, he had traveled back in time in order to see his father. Man travels back to his father's life one at a time and to talk to him, to play table tennis with him. But soon, this brief meeting is no longer possible. Mary wants to have another child. The man is stunned. Once the child is born, he can no longer travel back in time to his father's life. He must accept the loss of his father. The man travels back in time. He kisses his father. They go into the dark room together. This time is the final crossing. The two men go back to an earlier time. The man is still a child. The father takes him by the hand, running together on the beach, throwing stones together. Nothing has changed, just watching the sunset. And he went home, saying goodbye to his father. The hero goes back to life. Day by day, he gradually comes to terms with his father's absence, and with the fact that life is not as it should be. The man stops crossing over. He begins to live each day as if it were a second time, making everyone happy, making breakfast for his family, taking his daughter to school. The man goes back to his ordinary life. Like most of us, there's no recurrence. The man is able to enjoy ordinary happiness.